everybody. I'll introduce our councillors. We have from the South Ward, Councillor Simon Illingworth. From the South West Ward, myself, Mayor Neil Trotter. From South Central, Joe Beard from Cobden. And from Central Ward, we have Councillor Helen Durant, Councillor Geraldine Canady, Councillor Ruth Castrain, and from the North Ward, we have Councillor Leslie Brown. We'll start with the prayer. We ask for guidance and blessing on this council. May the true needs and well-being of our communities be our concern. Help us who serve as leaders to remember that all our decisions are made in the best interests of the people, culture and environment of the Corangamite Shire. Amen. Acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we're meeting and pay our respects to their elders past and present. We welcome everybody online, anyone that's joining us. Mr. Mason, do we have any apologies?
Mr. Mayor, we've got no apologies for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of conflict of interest?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've got one conflict of interest declaration from Councillor Castrain in relation to item 9.7, which is the slurry sealing contract.
Thank you. Councillors, can I have someone confirm the minutes of the previous meeting? Councillor Castrain, seconded Councillor Brown. Thank you. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you. We'll move on to deputations and presentations. Mr. Mason, do we have any?
Mr. Mayor, we've got no deputations or presentations for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. Move on to committee reports. 7.1, Swimming Pool Committee Membership 2020-21. Ms. Love, thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This report recommends Council appoints the nominated members to the Committees of Management for the Camperdown, Cobden, Lismore, Skipton, Terang and Timboon swimming pools for the 2020-2021 season. Each of Corangamite Shire's 6 swimming pools have a Community Asset Committee established and appointed to manage the community facility in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020. The Community Asset Committees are responsible for acting as a local contact and representative for feedback about pool operations, for providing local input into programming and planning for minor capital improvements at the facilities. The committees have each recently conducted their annual general meetings. Pleasingly, our committees see a healthy turnover and welcome a number of new and enthusiastic volunteers to support the committee operations, as well as seeing some depart, while some committees remain relatively unchanged. Councillors, the recommendation is before you.
Ms. Love. Councillors, can I have someone move the recommendation? Councillor Brown, seconded Councillor Canady. Councillor Brown.
Sorry, I the wrong button there. Apologise for that. I'd like to congratulate the new committee members for taking on the roles of managing our swimming pools. It is good to see that we have such great support from volunteers to continue the work of managing the pools. I'd like to congratulate the new committee members for taking on their role and wish them all the best for the coming season. I support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Brown. Councillor Canady.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Brown, I think, said everything that needed to be said there. But I'd also like to add that the Shire pools provide a wonderful venue for exercise and competition for our residents and hours of enjoyment. And I don't think we could imagine not having them. So it's wonderful that we have all those committees that are prepared to run them. I support the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillors, any further comment? Councillor Beard.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to reiterate what both previous councillors have said, but also thanking those outgoing volunteers that have obviously given their time on behalf of their community. I think going forward this pool season, we really don't know how that's going to look during the current times at the moment. So come 2021 pool season, I hope all of our community people, young and old, get behind our pools, and the volunteers that have obviously put their hands up to represent these committees. And let's really give it a good go this summer, and hopefully we have some good weather also to celebrate at the end. And when we look back on it, hopefully we'll be able to say that we've had a good pool season. So thank you to everyone that has put up their time to help get these community asset committees on board. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Reid. I'd just like to add, like to take the opportunity to thank the pool committees for their support. I noticed that there's probably in excess of 65 people who form up those committees from the communities. So we're not really sure how the pools will operate this year with the COVID pandemic. We hope that the easing of restrictions will allow them to be used to pretty much their full extent. The chlorinated water won't be the problem. It's the airborne transmission will be the limiting factor, and so we may require masks to be worn when not in the water, and social distancing may still be in place. So we just ask the people who are using the facilities to comply with any directions that they're given at that time. So without any further ado, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We'll move on to planning reports. 8.1, planning permit application PP 2019-105. Use and development of landfill materials recycling, Camperdown compost upgrade and expansion, and reduction of car parking for Blind Creek Road, Notup. Mr. Moyne, thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, I present council with this report for planning permit application PP 2019-105. The application seeks planning approval for the use and development of land for materials recycling, involving the upgrade and expansion of an existing facility operated by Camperdown Compost Company to improve waste handling and processing on site. The proposal involves an increase in the total waste receivable from 24,000 tonnes to 50,000 tonnes, along with site layout changes and associated buildings and works. The proposal requires both planning approval and works approval from the EPA before the use and development starts. Both applications have been progressed through a joint process. A final decision for the works approval is still pending. Notice that the application was given and council received a total of 41 submissions, 14 objections and 27 submissions in support. Key issues raised include road and traffic management, site access, odour and air quality, biosecurity, stormwater and drainage management, groundwater, landscaping and visual amenity, site and operational management, site risk and emergency, including fire, and monitoring and compliance. Submissions in support refer to the importance of the site in the regional waste network as a key facility used by industry and business, and improved environmental and amenity outcomes. The proposal has been assessed against the Corangamite planning scheme and is supported by relevant policy direction and controls. The proposal will facilitate a significant best practice site upgrade with the intent of positioning the facility as a key waste processing site within the southwest region, supporting a circular economy and less waste to landfill. This aligns with the state and Barwon Southwest waste and resource recovery plans that provide the strategic direction. Issues raised within submissions have been reviewed, and whilst they are acknowledged and supported, do not raise any matters that would lead to an unacceptable planning outcome. Relevant conditions have been recommended to address these issues. Councillors, the recommendation is before you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Moyne. Councillors, we have the recommendation. Has someone move the recommendation? Councillor Gristrain, do I have a seconder? Councillor Durant. Thank you. Councillor Gristrain.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I can totally realise why neighbouring landholders have a negative view regarding this application, and why there is substantial concern regarding the increase of the capacity by doubling the intake of waste material. They've had to put up with odour and poor road traffic conditions with an incredibly unsightly site affecting their amenity. So being sceptical about this application is a natural reaction. In fact, I've never seen a planning report in which every aspect of objections received, and there was 10 of them as Mr Moyne just outlined, are either supported or partly supported by the council planning staff. This highlights the need to ensure that these issues are addressed in this permit. However, with the proposal before us, I'm certain with this major change to the operation of the site, it will lead to an improved amenity and better environmental outcomes. The upgrade using this new best practice system, which has been designed in Austria, will bring about a different method of treating the waste, therefore reducing the odour as the material breaks down a lot quicker with the oxygen forced into the windrows. Other works, including fencing and 6 metre buffer of landscaping, will screen the site. A 2 metre wide bund wall, on-site stormwater and drainage system and a contact water dam will contain contaminated runoff from the site. Also, very importantly, trucks will be unloaded on site and there will be car parks, which will eliminate the need of parking on Blind Creek Road. With approval of this application, a number of management plans will be needed to be prepared. The traffic management plan, which hopefully will address the issues and concerns raised by the residents, particularly around the intersection of Darlington Road, Blind Creek Road, and what we'd like to see there is no heavy trucks on that accessing the site during school bus hours. A stormwater and drainage management plan, air quality management plan, environmental management plan, and an emergency management plan, which is a prerequisite by the Country Fire Authority. Along with the work authority, which is yet to be issued by the EPA, a far greater level of monitoring and compliance should be achieved. And I do agree with the submissions that have been made in support of the application, that there is no doubt that this facility is certainly key to the waste resources in the southwest. And as a result of that and the conditions that are being put onto this permit, I'm happy to move it. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Australian. Councillor Durant. You're on mute, Councillor Durant.
Thank you. My apologies. Thank you. I believe this application has a great deal of merit. It ticks all the boxes as far as the need to develop and increase the circular economy, and the proposed expansion will ensure that a suitably sized and functional facility will be able to continue to service the region, and by all accounts, this service area will increase in the future as demand grows. There are real issues with the current facility, particularly around odour and air quality. This and a number of other concerns raised by objectors have all been acknowledged as valid in this council report. And as Councillor Australian has already mentioned, to see all concerns validated in a report is quite unusual. This applicant has been upfront in acknowledging all these issues and has gone to great lengths to investigate an Austrian facility that uses processing systems for waste treatment that can be replicated here. This should address the odour and air quality problems. Road and traffic management is a real concern, and a traffic management plan is required as a condition of the permit. It is only fair and reasonable that the applicant be financially responsible for any repairs and maintenance needed as part of the construction program. The creation of dedicated entry and exit points for unloading and on-site car parking should alleviate many of the current problems. There are real concerns about the environmental impacts of this project: groundwater contamination, biosecurity, stormwater and drainage issues. The responsible authorities have no objections, subject to compliance with the conditions on this permit. Most importantly, the EPA, who are the determining authority, have to be satisfied with the applicant's comprehensive proposal before they will issue a works approval and licence. This is a development that needs to go ahead if we want to continue to recycle waste and prevent it from going to landfill. The permit conditions will need to be adhered to, and compliance will also need to be closely monitored and enforced to make sure the concerns of objectors are genuinely addressed. And given the conditions of the permit, I'm very happy to second the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Durant. Councillors, any further comment? Councillor Illingworth.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I support this also. I think the owners have done a terrific job and have been quite neighbourly. They've been overseas. They've addressed the issues, and And I think that, the way that they've gone about it has been a terrific plus. And realistically, if all people that came forward with developments such as this did the amount of work, it'd make our job a lot easier. So I wholeheartedly support this.
Councillor Illingworth. Councillors, any further comment? Councillor Canady and Councillor Baird.
Yes, this facility will be, the proposed facility will be a huge improvement on the facility that's currently operating. And I must say that I was really impressed with the willingness of the applicants to address all the concerns of their neighbours, and that they've gone to such a huge amount of trouble to make sure that they're going to produce a world-class facility that hopefully will have minimal impact on the environment and the neighbours.
Thank you. Councillor Baird.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, at the end of the day, we need to remember that such a facility as this is really integral to our agricultural industry. The fact that it's servicing our milk processing plants is something that we shouldn't shy away from. It's also going to continue to, keep waste going into the landfill. So that's also something we need to be mindful of. This site for many years hasn't, for various reasons, been able to operate under the strict and enforced EPA regulations. So I think for all the people that did have objections, this, the fact that there's 27 conditions over not only the monitoring, but, taking care of this site, this will be a great outcome from everyone involved. As Councillor Gastrain said, not very often we see a planning application come through with recommendations that obviously tick off every scenario that comes before us when it comes to the objectives. So I think the fact that the officers have worked along with the applicants to address all those concerns, I think is a great outcome. That road, the traffic management plan, that's a great get, as well as the EPA requirements that are going to be needed. So I think all in all, this is a fantastic project. There's going to be job creation and job retention, which also for our communities, that's a fantastic outcome. So as Councillor Illingworth said, the applicants have certainly done their homework. It's very unique, I think, in the state of Victoria that there'd be a site such as this. And I think at the end of the day, we should be very proud that there's a business like this operating in our community, in our shire, I should say. So I'm certainly happy to support the recommendation as well.
A further comment? I'd just like to add that this facility is a very important part of the state recycling infrastructure, and a very important processor of compostable material for the region. Diversion of food and organic waste from the landfill is important and a component of the state strategy to divert recyclable materials from landfill. The tonnage is of this facility higher than what it currently goes through our landfill per annum. So it gives you some idea of the size of the operation. If this facility was not providing this vital service, the tonnage is going to the Narrogid landfill will probably more than double. The EPA has been and will be playing an increasing role in managing and controlling odour and wastewater treatment and monitoring to what has occurred in the past. And I'm satisfied that the treatment methods will improve the odour and wastewater issues. Transport movement will be an issue, but these facilities do have to go somewhere. Transport will always be an issue wherever it's these sort of facilities are located. Car parking proposed is adequate for the site, and it's good that it's moving from the road into the facility itself. This is a reasonably remote site. It's unlikely to attract visitation apart from people doing business with the facility. It's also a significant employer within the community. The facility is an important component of the state's recycling strategy and the circular economy. as has been previously stated, there's quite a number of conditions that have been attached to the proposal, recognising the concerns of the objectors. The proponent will have to ensure that the attached conditions are implemented and adhered to. So it gets my support. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous decision. Thank you. We'll move on to officers' reports. Item 9.1, Corangamite Shire Disability Access and Inclusion Plan for 2020-25. Mr. Ray, thank you.
Mayor, thank you, and through you. The report proposes, councillors, that you adopt this evening a disability access and inclusion plan. The plan is for a period of 5 years. The plan's objective fundamentally is to provide great opportunities for members of our community that live with a disability, and removing barriers to ensure they have, I guess, the enjoyment of life that many of us do take for granted. The plan spans 6 priority areas, including transport, education and communication. The plan's been developed following a consultation process over many weeks, and many views have been incorporated into the plan's development. Councillors, over 40 actions are proposed over the plan's 5-year life cycle, including the establishment of a reference group to help guide the plan's implementation over that period. Councillors, it's also proposed that the measurement against the plan and reporting against its progress be documented in Council's annual report every year. Councillors, the recommendation this evening is to adopt the Disability Inclusion Plan 2025 as attached to the agenda.
Thanks, Mr. Ray. Councillors, can I have someone move the recommendation? Councillor Gistrain, seconded Councillor Baird. Councillor Gistrain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm more than happy to move this recommendation for council to adopt this plan. It's excellent. There's a lot of really good, easy initiatives that can be achieved. You know, something as simple as council communications to members of the public in a larger font for people who perhaps are vision impaired. So some really, really simple things that can make people's lives much easier. A connective footpath network, I'm sure that's what we would like in all of our towns. One thing I would like to highlight is advocating to government for accessible public transport, and this is something that that obviously council has been doing for a number of years. But I would like to highlight the issue that we have and has been brought to my attention, the council and the state government's attention, but unfortunately we haven't had any success. And that's with the Melbourne to Warrnambool train quite often misses the D carriage. The D carriage gets dropped off, and that's the one with the disabled accessible toilet in it. So it means that anybody in a wheelchair who wants to travel on that train can't, because they obviously can't access the toilet on the way if they need to. So they're bumped off into a taxi, which is really unfortunate. They should have the right to travel on the train like everybody. And I'm not saying that we need to have more modern trains, or I really would like more modern trains, but I think there needs to be accessible toilets on every carriage, or at least to making sure that every train has one carriage with accessible toilets in it. So that's just something that we can, with the help of this strategy, is that we can continue to push for the next 4 years or so. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations to people and who have put this together, the staff, the consultants, Katie Hearn and her team in community services. They've done a great job. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Gistrain. Councillor Beard.
Yes, thank you through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Gistrain, for raising that significant issue that I know Josh Hose and many others are very passionate about. So thank you for raising that again. First, I'll thank the many amount of people that have engaged through this process in giving feedback and to our council staff and the consultants. We couldn't have got to this point without those people, whether they were people that were living with disability or people who were associated with people who were living with disability. So that certainly meant a lot for us to get to this point. We've got a 5-year plan now with numerous, like I think Mr. A said, 6 priority areas with multiple actions, real actions that that this council can be really accountable for. So we've always taken into account when it comes to building streetscapes and facilities and things, there's many boxes that we have to tick when it comes to servicing the whole of our community, but this has taken that to another level. So, you know, we're also looking at, you know, employment for people who to even work at Corangamite Shire. So ticks many boxes. Personally, I am someone who lives with a disability myself, and I'm so proud of this document to think that we are taking care of, once again, the whole of community. It doesn't have to be a superficial disability that people have. Often people have a disability and you can't always see it. So this obviously is a document that has multiple actions that will help and support multiple people. I think it's something that most people with a disability, they just want to be treated equally. So I think this document will certainly help Corangamite Shire to stand by those words in helping, you know, support and commit to those people wholeheartedly. I mean, I'm glad to see that there'll be a reference group set up. So it won't just be council that take hold of this going forward. They'll actually continue, as they have already, engage with people who have got lived experience. So that's really important for us. No matter what we do, we need to engage people who live and breathe what they're going through every day. It's no different to when we build a playground. Let's engage with the kids. So it's really important that we do anything in the disability space, that we continue to liaise with people that means most to. So certainly more than happy to second this recommendation, and I thank council for committing to this strategy last financial year.
Councillor Beard. Councillors, any further comment? Councillor Durand.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I think this is an excellent plan. It's concise, specific, easy to read and understand, which makes it totally accessible, which is what you want when you're talking about an inclusion and access plan. I was impressed by the level of community engagement and consultation that sits behind this plan, and the requirement for this community involvement to continue as the plan progresses. It's also good to see that there's a level of accountability expected, as outcomes will be made public in Council's annual report. This plan needs to be owned by the community, as access and inclusion is everyone's business. And with the key actions spread across 5 years, this is a realistic and achievable plan that can be used by council and community alike to make sure that everyone can participate fully in their communities. I'm very happy to support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Grant. Councillors, any further comment? I'd just like to probably add, as someone who's acted as a carer for a family member and has worked with people with disabilities for a number of years, it's not until you live the experience you become aware of the barriers to inclusion and participation that many of our members of our community experience. We live in a society that has largely been developed for and by able-bodied people. Thankfully, that's changing and being challenged by those who have been excluded and disadvantaged by access and inclusion. Quite often they've been excluded simply because their needs have never been considered. The days of visibility of people with disabilities are thankfully on the wane, but we still have a long way to go. This plan is a recognition and a start towards different ways of doing things, but it will require resourcing, and it's great to see that accountability measures have been included in the document. Future councils will have to adequately resource this and be mindful of the accountability provisions. So I support the recommendation as well. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 9.2, position of Timburn and Simpson strategy. Mr. Moyne, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, I present council with the final positioning Timburn and Simpson strategy for adoption. The strategy delivers future strategic directions for Timburn and Simpson including a Simpson structure plan to provide a future land use planning framework for the town. The objective in undertaking the project is to establish both Timboon and Simpson as key service centres within the Great Ocean Road region and coastal hinterland, helping to position and define their roles and capability to cater for future growth. Key strategic directions and implementation actions are provided as outlined within the report. After being considered by Council in July 2020, the strategy was released for public consultation over 4 weeks with 16 submissions received, 10 from individuals and 6 from government agencies and authorities. Overall, submissions received provide support for the strategy, with minor changes made to reflect specific comments and feedback without changing the strategic direction of the plan. Consultation has helped to develop a robust final version of the plan. The steps forward to implement recommendations of the strategy involve a planning scheme amendment, economic development actions, and future capital works. Preparation of the strategy aligns with Council's focus on population growth, particularly in a post-COVID environment, investment attraction, and facilitation of the visitor economy. Councillors, the recommendation is provided before you.
Thanks, Mr. Moore. Councillor's going to have someone move the recommendation. Councillor Illingworth, do I have a second? Councillor Canady. Councillor Illingworth.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm pretty stoked actually that this plan's come about. I think it's a terrific idea, and I think it also shows that council looks to the future and not just the everyday occurrences. And I'd like to particularly thank all those people that came to that first Futurist meeting that we had, and Simpson showed out in force. It also shows that sense of camaraderie and sense of pride that they have in their town, and so they should. The school numbers as they stand at the moment are quite low. You know, small towns are always worried that they're going to lose their school, and then as things go, then you'll find, beg your pardon, sorry, an alarm went off. So when schools start dropping in numbers, then you'll find that the towns start degrading, and that's certainly not what Simpson wants, and it's not what's going to happen now. This plan in itself will increase the schooling numbers without a doubt. Increase the local population. It'll increase the jobs, the shop incomes and revenues coming into the street, and also the takeaway in the main street. The key move to this is to provide affordable accommodation for tourism workers and indeed gas plant workers and so on during shutdowns. The displacement of locals out of rental accommodation that was the norm and certainly getting worse pre-COVID. I think that those times are likely to come if we didn't do this. And so it really has come at a terrific time that we can ensure, firstly, that our rental accommodation is available for locals and local workers and farm workers, but also that there's accommodation there for the potential boom of tourism that is coming in the next decade or so. I think the first thing, or what led to this actual plan at Simpson, was having a look at what happened at Lorne. So Lorne began its building period. It did not cater for the workers and the affordable accommodation for the workers, and they have paid that toll ever since. And so they have great difficulty in getting workers. Quite honestly, the workers cannot afford to live in Lorne and get a lower wage. And so this has been a really good step in the right direction for both Timboon and Simpson. And again, thank you to the people of Simpson, because you started this.
Thanks, Councillor Illingworth. Councillor Canady.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I really love this plan. I just think it's just brilliant and great timing, as Councillor Illingworth said. It presents a vision for Timboon and Simpson and promises enormous potential by creating a framework that opens up an array of opportunities for growth and development, which will benefit those towns and also further into the hinterland. And we do want to bring tourists further into the hinterland. This strategic planning is aimed to encourage population growth, to boost investment and benefits in the visitor economy that we don't always enjoy. And I think it will be beneficial to the Corangamite communities to enjoy more of the investment from the visitor economy. There are opportunities contained in the strategy that address housing to create a new lifestyle settlement and the job market. For tourism, which is forecast to grow in this region, there is a focus in the strategy to capture overnight and longer visitor stays through new accommodation opportunities, streetscape redesign, and to enhance and attract visitation. The investment aspect of the plan is positioning the towns for new commercial and industrial development opportunities, particularly with the potential for the Simpson butter factory redevelopment, which I think would be marvellous for that town. There's been expansive public consultation, and as Councillor Illingworth said, there's been a great amount of interest from the people of Timboon and Simpson in this vision for their towns, and I think that's been marvellous and it's been taken into account. There's also been input from government agencies and key local stakeholders. Of course, there were some concerns raised in relation to biodiversity and protection of habitat and bushfire risk. So those concerns have been taken account of, and minor changes have been made in the strategy plan to reflect that feedback. Again, I think it's a fabulous plan, and I look forward to seeing it developed, and I support the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Canadian. Councillors, any further comment? Well, I can't let it go. I've been from Timboon, I've got to make a comment. Like the geographical and physical constraints of the coast, and the need for protect coastal assets and landscape values along the coast means that in order to capitalise on the tourist visitation, we need to make better use of their hinterland. I think over the number of years that's become more and more apparent, and the success of the 12 Apostles Food Trail and the extension of the trail from Camperdown to Port Campbell will help to establish these towns as tourism and accommodation and service providers. Simpson is located on the primary road, Road and the Princess Highway. It's something we've been pushing to get upgrade, but with cheaper housing and land, Simpson's very well placed to act as a service centre and a dormitory provider for both tourists and workers within the tourist industry. Timboon is one of 4 towns that are located on the trail and with already established boutique tourism businesses, and as a service centre is well placed to capitalise on its position. There's been a strong interest in take-up of lifestyle properties in and around Timboon, and recent development and sales of lifestyle properties and the lack of rental place properties places Timboon in a good position to grow and prosper, so long as planning can keep pace and drive development. The face of agriculture is changing with the amalgamation of farms and larger holdings. We have contractors supplying services to the agricultural sector and to the energy producers and tourism sectors. There's a need for good quality housing stock for rental and for purchase, and it's becoming patently evident that there's a lack of this in the area. Anything we can do to promote that is a good move. Recently, we've been approached by farmers stating that they are finding it increasingly difficult to attract workers because of lack of good quality and available housing. We have people travelling long distances from outside our shire to work within our shire. When we're faced with a static or declining population, it makes good economic sense to plan and increase our population and add and to create a situation where we have land and housing stock to meet the growing demand. So therefore it's essential that we plan ahead, and so I support the strategy, and I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. We'll move on to item 9.3, the designation of Neerat and Cobden bushfire place of last resort, dash neighbourhood safer place. Mr. Moyne, thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll present council with a report on the designation of bushfire places of last resort in Cobden and Neerat. The communities of both towns requested that council designate sites following the 2018 Southwest Complex fires. Bushfire places of last resort are not community fire refuges. Instead, they are places of last resort during the passage of a fire and a place of relative safety. They are assessed by the CFA as providing some protection from immediate risk of fire attack, but do not guarantee survival or safety. Consultation has occurred with the CFA, who have approved both sites in Cobden along Curdy Street and at the Neerat Recreation Reserve, along with Council's municipal fire and emergency management committees. The designation of these two sites is a further management measure that may assist in protecting community and saving lives in any future extreme or catastrophic fire event. Councillors, the recommendation is provided before you.
Thanks, Mr. Moyne. Councillors, we have the recommendation. Have someone move the recommendation? Councillor Durand, have a seconder? Councillor Beard, I think. Councillor Durand.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. During and after the St Patrick's Day fires, there was a lot of concern and confusion amongst many people in Neerat as to where they should go should the town be directly threatened by fire, particularly given that the fire started after dark and took many people by surprise. The choice of the Neerat Recreation Reserve as a place of last resort, neighbourhood safer place, is one that most people would naturally see as the best option for the town. It will provide some comfort to the community, but it is so important for people to realise that this area is designed to be a last resort only and can only offer relative safety. It cannot guarantee that you will survive a bushfire and should not be the only planned option in the case of a bushfire emergency. Continuing education on the need for household fire plans and leaving early needs to be reinforced so that these places of last resort remain just that and not the default position when a fire threatens. I'm very happy to move the motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Durand. Councillor Beard.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Just reiterate what Councillor Durand just in moving that motion. I think it's really important to understand too, in Neerat's case, completely different circumstances to our other residential townships, as well as each of our towns are, have got different landscapes. And it's good to know that hopefully Neerat, the township of Neerat, the people within that will feel a little bit more at ease knowing that they have got a designated place of last resort, as we must reiterate that it's not going to ensure that there'll be survival, but at least it does, give them somewhere that they know that they can go as a last resort. The trustee of the Neerat Rec Reserve will continue to work alongside council in terms of vegetation management there. So as there's a tick done against and certification of a bushfire place of last resort doesn't mean that that's exactly just where it finishes. There's often continued work that needs to be done around those areas to keep it up to the legislative requirements as they're certified. I know these processes don't happen, these locations don't just happen easily. There's a lot of consultation, obviously, between council, the community, first and foremost, who raise the issue, then to council, who then liaise with the CFA in identifying potential areas that can be designated. It then goes through the Emergency Fire Planning Committee, and then it goes through, our Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee as well, which I chair. So it does take a long time to get to this point. It needs to tick multiple boxes when it comes to getting it certified, particularly under the legislation. And all this has been on the back of the Black Saturday fires multiple years ago, which we know there was complete devastation. So these areas don't just get designated. We may not all agree with them as community members, individual community members, that some of them may not seem to make sense, but at the end of the day, they have to be compliant. It makes sense to have a structure, for instance, in Cobden. Why wouldn't it be, you know, the Cobden Civic Hall, for instance, and it's in the main street? But in terms of the structure itself, there'd be a lot of compliance that would have to go into that building to get it to meet the mark. And obviously the CFA, not meaning the local brigade, it's above the local brigade's level, but they see that that's not as achievable as having that main street area. So as I said, not everyone individually will agree with these designated areas, but they are going to serve a purpose as a last resort. So having gone through the process, hopefully reassuring now, most of our communities in the Corangamite Shire that certainly raised this as an issue. We had Camperdown recently that had their area designated as well. So I think following St. Patrick's Day, there's still a bit of work to still be done, but I think that will certainly help keep some of our communities a bit more at ease now, knowing that they have got somewhere, you know, as that last resort. So thank you. Happy to second that motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Beard. Councillors, any further comment? Councillor Gistrone.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you probably to Mr Moyne, and I apologise, question without notice. I'm just wondering what the hold-up has been with finding a locality in Terang, considering, you know, Camperdown's site was designated a couple of months ago, and that's in the main street area, and we see Cobden is as well. I would have thought that the demographics of Camperdown and Terang were probably a little bit similar, so I'm just wondering what the hold up is in getting a site identified in Terang, if he has that information. Otherwise, I'll take it on notice.
Thank you, Councillor Gistrone. Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe the hold up relates to finding a suitable site that complies with the site and landscape assessment requirements that the CFA set. So that's about the level of information that I can provide at the moment, but I know that the team are working through the suitable sites in relation to Terang.
Thanks, Mr Moyne.
Yep. Councillors, any further comment? Councillor Illingworth.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously these bushfire safer places are necessary. I would hope within the next 4 years, Simpson gets something similar. It's currently got a community plan, which is a good achievement. But in all honesty, when the fire came through, they couldn't get out anyway because the roads were blocked by trees. So Simpson can't be off the map on this scenario, and so I'd be urging the next council to consider such a plan for Simpson.
Thanks, Councillor Illingworth. Councillors, any further comment? I think most of it's been covered off already. I'd just like to reiterate that these are not safer places or refuges. They're places of last resort. By far the best option is to have a fire plan, to act on it as early as possible. A prior summer check to check your insurance, instigate a fire plan, show that plan to your relatives and friends and neighbours, and check with vulnerable neighbours, and be prepared to leave early. I was involved in the Tim Byrne plan, and that was a message coming through from the CFA loud and clear. You know, your best option, have a fire plan, be prepared to leave early. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. We'll move on to item 9.4, retail area facade improvement program. Mr Moyne, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you, I present Council with this report on the allocation of funding through the retail area facade improvement program. The aim of the program is to encourage businesses located in retail areas of towns within Corangamite Shire to complete improvement works to their facades and help to improve the overall presentation of streetscapes within the Shire. The program is innovative and helps address a funding gap that has been identified regarding the funding of improvements to businesses' facades. The program began in 2015 and has seen over 100 businesses receive funding, resulting in over $900,000 of improvement works carried out across the Shire. Businesses from all towns in the Shire with street frontage could apply for $1 for $2 basis to complete improvements to their facades, with the amount capped at $3,000 per business. Following the application period, 29 applications to the program were received requesting almost $70,000 of funding through the program that would see nearly $180,000 of works completed. The applications have been evaluated based on the program's assessment criteria and then ranked. As the value of the funding applications exceeds the budgeted amount, Council has the option to fund additional businesses using carry forward money, resulting in a total additional cost of $7,500. 6 businesses have not been recommended for funding as they did not meet eligibility criteria. The program continues to support businesses across the Shire, which is particularly important at the current time, and enhance and make attractive our township streetscapes. Councillors, the recommendation is provided before you.
Thanks, Mr. Moyne. Councillors, going to have someone move the recommendation. Councillor Australian, have a seconder. Councillor Canady. Councillor Australian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm delighted to move this recommendation. As was highlighted in the report, it's I think the 5th, 6th year of this project. Nearly $1 million worth of work has been carried out on the facades and the businesses throughout our towns right across the Shire. I don't think anyone could argue that it really hasn't been quite a transformational project, which came about, I think, after the completion of the Terang streetscape, when everybody looked around and saw how terrific the streetscape itself looked, but that the businesses looked tired and needed some work. And so the fund was established just to, I guess, create the impetus for the business owners just to upgrade their facades and their signage. And, being in Terang today, it looked terrific. There's work to be done in all the towns. So I really encourage all businesses to get out there and have a look at this fund. In addition to the $57,500 that we're allocating today, there's also a further $13,000 of planning fees, which will be waived to the successful businesses. I will say, and I guess a request to the next council when they look at the criteria for this program in 12 months or so, is that up to date, the program is really focused on businesses in the main streets of our town, which is understandable. But there are a number of businesses, boutique businesses, that are popping up right throughout the Shire. A number of hospitality businesses on the 12 Apostles Artisan Food Trail, which don't meet the criteria, and we're seeing that there are several businesses that have applied this year haven't met the criteria. So perhaps that can be included, whether or not we do council does a single round of businesses out of the main street, just to continue to give the same opportunities to those business operators that have been given to others over the past 6 years. So absolutely delighted to support this grant fund, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Australian. Councillor Canady.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. The retail facade program has obviously been a great success and encourages pride in our town streetscapes and business frontages. We all know that when you drive through an attractive town streetscape, it's often very appealing and will often cause you to stop and go and have a look around. So anything that can do that and encourage people to stop and maybe shop in our businesses is worthwhile. The program indicates council's support for and encouragement for businesses within the Shire, particularly during these trying times. So the funding earmarked for this program is from the current budget allocation, and the carry forward funds have been allocated for the same purpose. I'm really pleased Shire businesses have taken up the opportunity that this program offers, and I look forward to seeing the results and benefits of it. And I support the motion to fund the $57,500 to the applications approved.
Thanks, Councillor Canady. Councillors, any further comment? Councillor Beard.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mann, thank you. And yeah, this is an award-winning initiative that Corangamite Shire started all those years back as Councillor Gastrain alluded to, and is now being templated in other shires. So we should be really proud. The staff should be really proud that this that this program is still going as strong as it is. And the outcome that it's achieving is incredible for our communities. I'm really glad that Councillor Gastrain alluded to the fact that we need to, or whoever the next council is, I'm sorry, but please, officers, if you could take on note to look at the policy guidelines. Having known there's been a couple of businesses, particularly in this current round, that are commercial businesses but just happen to be situated in an industrial area, has certainly probably disqualified them from being able to get some of those funding. So I think it's something that does need to be looked at going forward. And then, yeah, it'd be exciting to see some other businesses that are doing some incredible work also be able to be eligible to this funding. So congratulations, hopefully, as council will vote this through, to all those businesses that have gone through the application process. It really does make a difference to our streetscapes. And as Councillor Canady said, another reason for people to stop in our town. So well done to everyone involved.
Thank you, Councillor Beard. Councillors, any further comment? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Move on to item 9.5, Cell 13 CAP Design, Audit and Construction Quality Assurance Services. Mr. Moyne, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I present council with this report to award the contract for Cell 13 CAP Design, Audit and Construction Quality Assurance Services at the Narrogin Regional Landfill. The landfill is an important asset for council and is listed as a waste hub of state significance. It is important to plan for the design and construction needs of the landfill to ensure infrastructure at the site is made available and operations can continue. Cell 13 is currently being filled with waste and is an active cell. Filling of the cell is to be completed by February 2021 and then needs to be capped within 2 years to comply with EPA requirements. A tender has been advertised for 4 weeks and 7 submissions have been received. Following evaluation and assessment, SMEC Australia's tender was identified as providing the best value for money and certainty around management of the site. The tender includes EHS support as the company providing the audit services. The tender ensures that all aspects of the cell cap design, construction and auditing will meet EPA best practice requirements. Councillors, the recommendation is provided before you.
Thanks, Mr. Moyne. Councillors, we have the recommendation. Can someone move the recommendation? Councillor Grant, do I have a seconder? Councillor Canady, I think you're first. Councillor Grant.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. This is very specialised work that council is unable to do itself. 3 out of the 7 companies who tendered for this contract scored quite closely overall. However, the recommended tenderer, SMEC Australia, offered greater value for money. They have the required technical capability and experience working in other landfills in Victoria and have a good working relationship with the independent design and audit company who will undertake these functions for them. And so I'm happy to move the motion that they all be appointed. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Grant. Councillor Canady.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I think Councillor Durant might have said most of what I had in mind, but it is very specialised work, as Councillor Durant said. The tenders were sought from a number of experienced organisations for this work, and I'm losing my train of thought. I'm sorry. They were appropriately evaluated in accordance with EPA guidelines and standards. 7 tenders were evaluated against a range of criteria, and SMEC Australia was shown to be the most appropriate tenderer in association with EHS as their audit group. Their submission provided confidence in their ability to meet all the requirements for this work, and both organisations have extensive design, audit and construction quality assurance experience for this work from other landfills they've worked on in Victoria. And they both are very cognizant of the requirements of EPA Victoria. The tendered price is also lower than the projected budget for these works, and I believe the tender has been properly evaluated and support the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Canady. Councillor, any further comment? I'd just like to add, it seems incredible that we're up to cell 13, we're capping cell 13. This shows you how much rubbish is going into the landfill on a regular basis. So without any further ado, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. We'll move on to item 9.6, road sealing contract 2020-21. Ms. Love, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you. This report seeks to award contract 2021-001 sealing of various local roads throughout Corangamite Shire and Warrnambool City Council in 2020-2021. This is a collaborative tender between the two municipalities, which has following on from a successful 5-year relationship and collaborative approach to share resources and have the annual sealing programs for both municipalities done under one contract. Council maintains 914 kilometres of sealed roads. These roads require periodic sealing to maintain the surface condition and preserve the underlying road pavement. Council's resealing program this year will cover 81 kilometres, which is nearly 9% of the sealed road network. Nomination of the roads for the sealing contract has been based on the data collected from recent road condition assessments and in-field inspections. Council is undertaking a competitive tender process to recruit a suitably qualified and experienced contractor to undertake resealing works. The sealing contract has been tendered and evaluated in accordance with Council's procurement policy and the evaluation criteria. It's considered that the best overall value for Council is provided from the tender submitted by Inroads. Based on the tendered price, the cost to complete the proposed works is just over $225,000 saving on budget, and it is proposed to redirect those savings to other road maintenance activities to ensure Council's road to recovery funding requirements are met. Councillors, the recommendation is before you.
Thanks, Ms. Love. Councillors, we have the recommendations before you. If someone move the recommendation. Councillor Gistrain, do I have a seconder? Councillor Canady. Councillor Gistrain.
Yes, Mr Mayor, thank you. I'm happy to move this recommendation. You know, roads is local road network is our biggest budget line item every single year, and we have to keep investing in our local roads. Nearly 9% of the sealed road network is included in this contract. 81 kilometres will be done. I agree with the recommendation that the money that we have saved on this contract should go to road maintenance, just to, as has done in previous years, to prop up the commitment we make to the regional, roads to recovery, which funds come from the federal government, which we are incredibly grateful to receive. And it's actually very tangible and very accountable, the difference that those road funds have made to our local road network. We're very grateful. I think it's good too that as we're now in our 5th year, I think, with the relationship with the City of Warrnambool, and I think it shows the way forward in a lot of council activities, that shared services between neighbouring municipalities is a really good way to have efficiencies in delivery of our services. So more than happy to move this recommendation. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Gistrain. Councillor Canady.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you. Councillor Gistrain covered all the issues very comprehensively here, so I don't think I can add too much more to it. It is great to have the collaboration with the Warrnambool City Council to be able to share resources and create efficiencies and cost savings. The assessment of the criteria showed that Inroads certainly we can have a lot of confidence in awarding the tender to Inroads, as they showed that they have all that's necessary to do a very good job here. So I, again, support the recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Kennedy. Councillor, any further comment? I'd just like to add, it's interesting to see that a decrease in the cost of bitumen because of the oil drop in price of oil has resulted in an action where we can actually care for more roads, which is not a bad byproduct. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. The next item is 9.7. We have conflict of interest for Councillor Gestrain. Councillor Gestrain is in the vestibule. Right. 9.7, slurry sealing contract, 2020-2021. Ms. Love, thank you.
Thank you. And through you, Mr Mayor, this report seeks to award contract 2021-012 slurry sealing of various local roads for 2020-2021. Bituminous slurry sealing or microsurfacing is an alternative to sprayed sealing and thin layer asphalting. More so than a regular sprayed seal, slurry sealing can provide minor road shape correction and, as a result, improve rideability for vehicles. As a part of condition assessments undertaken on Council's local road sealed network in May this year, the surface profile of all of our roads was measured using vehicle-mounted lasers. And these results are where the list of proposed roads for this treatment are derived, based on the rideability in a road, which can be expressed with IRI rating. Council has undertaken a competitive tender process to recruit a suitably qualified and experienced contractor. 3 tenders were submitted for the slurry sealing contract. These were evaluated in line with Council's procurement policy and the evaluation criteria, and it's considered that the best overall value for Council is provided by the tender submitted by Colas Solutions. Based on the tender price from Colas Solutions, the budget to complete the proposed works would require an increase on our $300,000 budget by $7,390. Councillors, the recommendation is before you.
Thanks, Ms. Love. Councillors, we have the recommendation. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Baird, do we have a seconder? Councillor Durand. Councillor Baird.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mr Mayor. Look, not a lot more to say on this particular recommendation as opposed to the previous one too, but it's important to note that Council really prides itself on its sealed road network, whether that be through the previous one that we just voted upon or this particular surface that Council has been investing in. We do, as I said, have a really good track record when it comes to our own sealed road network. And I think this, once again, not only this evaluation, but the oversight that goes into getting these treatments and the way in which they perform is critical to what we do going forward. So I take my hat off to the team that invest not only their time, but expertise into making sure that the quality of surface that goes on our roads will stand the test of time. So thank you, Ms Love and the team, for this report. Yes, there's a slight variation in terms of what we had allocated in the budget, but like anything we do, often we have significant savings through various areas, and it'd be interesting to see come mid-year budget review how we're tracking with that. But I think on the whole scheme of things, it's not a huge amount, and to make sure we're getting the best value for money, it's important that we support the evaluation that has occurred and that this tender is awarded. So, but it's exciting. This was quite revolutionary when we first started with the slurry sealing, and it's good to know that it's working well enough to continue on with that process. So, yeah, certainly happy to move the recommendation on this one. Thank you.
Councillor Beard. Councillor Durand.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have much else to say. I just want to mention, though, that this contract also has a high level of local content, as indeed the previous contract that has just been awarded, which means that these companies are supporting our local economies, which is really important. Thank you.
Councillor Dunbarton. Councillors, any further comment? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimous. Can we bring Councillor Australian back in from the cold? Thanks. We'll move on to item 9.8, Planning Environment Act 1987, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation. Mr. Mason, thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is largely a procedural item that requires Council to update the instrument of delegation or authorisation for staff to act under the Planning Environment Act. And these updates are necessary to reflect the fact that we've appointed a new planning officer. So the recommendation is before you in 4 parts.
Thanks, Mr. Mason. Councillors, can I have someone move the recommendation? Councillor Beard, do we have a seconder? Councillor Brown. Councillor Beard?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. As our CEO, Mr. Mason, just alluded to, it's definitely a procedural recommendation. The addition of a new staff member to make sure they've got the instrument of delegation there. So certainly happy to move the motion on this one to make sure we've got all checks and balances with our staff and for the work that they need to carry out. Thank you.
Councillor Brown?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing further really. It is procedural, so I'm happy to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Councillors, any further comment? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. We'll move on to 9.9, Records of Assembly of Councillors. Mr. Mason, thank you.
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, procedural item in that there are 3 records of assembly to be accepted as is required. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, can I have someone move the recommendation? Councillor Canady, seconded Councillor Longworth. Councillor Canady?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as Mr. Mason said, it is a procedural matter, and it appears to me that the records are accurate, so I agree with the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Longworth?
All correct, thanks.
Okay. No further comment? Motion, all those in favour? Carried. We'll now move on to item 10, other business. Councillors, do we have any other business? Councillor Illingworth.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on in relation to Port Campbell Streetscape, last week I put a motion for the streetscape plan. We did that primarily because the plan needs to pass through that stage before funding goes from a rush to a trickle caused by COVID-19. In short, it had to happen. Having said that, there's 3 things on the plan that need addressing. I tried to do that a month before the meeting and unfortunately they weren't addressed, removed or altered before the vote. So that's why I'm doing this now. Look, it's fair to say that people at Port Campbell, and there's only sort of 400 or so people, they do get fatigued from consultation, and often these lengthy processes can end with resentment and the feeling that they're not being listened to. So it's important, and I do totally understand from the amount of times that they are consulted by a range of different agencies that they do occasionally feel like they're being gamed or had the goalpost moved or shock tactics and all that sort of stuff. So it is a really difficult thing for council to consult, but also the other agencies. And I think that people have to understand that there is that fatigue angle. Nevertheless, the community reference group did a terrific job and the locals fought back and they brought the plan back on track. Unfortunately, the 3 things that were in the plan remained. Particularly disappointing, I guess, for the locals was the plonking of the structure at the dominating the headland. So anyway, I'm grateful for the backing of councillors that I can say this, and I'd like to explain the 3 agreed changes to the plan here tonight. First of all, that lookout structure dominating the headland that was plonked in at the 11th hour is gone, and a suitable low-key covert lookout will be drawn up. That structure breached the skyline of what is perhaps the greatest view along the Great Ocean Road, certainly in our area, where you can see the silhouette of the Port Campbell Pier with a setting sun on a summer's evening. And that structure breached that, it ruined it. And so I'm sure that the Port Campbell locals will be happy it's gone. The coloured pavement is the second thing. The coloured pavement in itself is okay. It's the fact that it bleeds out and blends the footpath into the road, and that needs adjusting so that it doesn't come out onto the road. Why? Because it's bloody dangerous, that's why. And if you ask 400 locals who've seen tourist after tourist, the internationals that see the coloured pavement that is currently there, they will walk across without looking for cars because they think it's some sort of a pedestrian crossing. And indeed, I studied international driver behaviour for the last 4 years, so I've got a fair idea as to what they do, and I would also like to thank the locals for bringing that to my attention as well. The third point, finally, is the local expertise needs to be sought from locals in relation to the plant species list. Primarily because on the current plant species list, there's a plant from the Grampians which clearly isn't indigenous to Port Campbell, and nor is kangaroo paw. Now, Port Campbell has fought hard for this seaside village, the look that they wanted, and specifically not to be a cliche of every other cut and paste town design. And that includes the plants used. Indeed, we have some of the best experts, Indigenous experts around, and they're in Princetown, so they're within our shire, and they need to be as part of that process. Now, I'll finish with this, and this is an explanation as to why, and it relates to the plants, but why we need to listen to the locals. There's a small shrub. It's endemic to Port Campbell and the coastline. Endemic meaning it's found nowhere else in the world. It has yellow flowers which appear between August and January. The species was first formally described in 1998 when it was split from the Herbertia aspera. And the plant's name? The Port Campbell guinea flower. And that's not even on the list. And I think that's probably something that we can learn, is that we can learn from locals because there is a wealth of knowledge. So I would like to thank, and I'm very grateful for the councillors to also have assisted me to put that together. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Illingworth. Councillors, any other business? I'd just like to add, with the easing of COVID restrictions, we've had a very good result in this area. The community has been very compliant, and I think very aware of the problems with the COVID virus, and hence we've had a very, very low infection rate. Now, as the restrictions are eased, as they're going to be in the next few weeks and going into summer, we just remind people to be mindful of that this is still a very, very contagious disease. And if you're given instructions, they might be coming out at a moment's notice, to take them on board and continue to be vigilant, continue to be compliant. It's one way that we can get through this, and hopefully now that the conditions are being released, we'll have some increase in business activity for some of our businesses that are doing it particularly hard. So the one thing we don't want to do is to go back into lockdown again, but that means that we have to be aware that's happening around us. Stay tuned and keep informed by looking at Council's website and the DHHS website, and make sure that you're staying well informed and just up to date with what's going on. So, Mr. Mason, there's no one for open forum. Councillor Gastrone.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was just going to refer back to comments that Councillor Illingworth has just made regarding Port Campbell Streetscape. I'm wondering if he was just bringing that to the attention of the community, or was there a motion involved in referring back those points to the landscape designers, which I'd be happy to second if that's what he was going to do.
I'm happy to put a motion. Yes, that'd be good. The discussion, the briefing, that there wasn't needed, but I think it probably would be appropriate that the 3 points are made. If you could put something together, Andrew, for me.
Through you, Mr Mayor, and I would just suggest, I think we could do that fairly simply just by saying that that the following matters be referred for changes to the landscape architects or landscape designers, and that's been replacement of the current lookout structure with a low key design, the colour pavement on the road to be removed, and local expertise sought on plant selection.
Yeah, that sounds beautiful. I'll put that one.
Right, we have the motion. Councillor Illingworth's put the motion. Councillor Restrained, you're seconding the motion. Councillors, any further? Councillor Restrained, did you want to talk to the motion?
No, I don't, Mr Mayor. It was just to tighten up the procedurals, that's all, to make sure that this gets done going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beard.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to support the motion. I just had a question, probably for Councillor Illingworth, after Mr Mason just mentioned, are we removing the lookout entire, or are we replacing it with a smaller scale? I was under the impression that they didn't want, the community weren't really in favour of anything there. So if we just have some clarification around that, please.
So the lookout was part of the plan, that there would be a lookout there. The community don't have a problem with the lookout there. They just want a covert lookout. And they don't want there to be a structure around it that breaches the skyline, that ruins the view. Thank you.
Councillors, any further comment? Councillor Restrained.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, and also with regards to the lookout, Councillor Illingworth brought to attention about the sea caves as well. So even if it is a small scale lookout, we need to obviously do some geotechnical work around making sure that it's in a safe place.
Thanks, Councillor Restrained. Councillors, any further comment? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. No confidential items. Well, thank you, councillors. Thanks for the gallery.